From LPI Studios in Memphis, Tennessee, it's Best in Blue.
Welcome to the Best in Blue. I'm your host, DC, of Funky Politics. Best in Blue is a show that connects and enlightens you, the listener, to the everyday inner workings of your Memphis Police Department. Since this is our first day on duty, folks, let's talk to the head in charge who sets the tone, our very own director, Mike Rallings, director of the Memphis Police Department. Director, sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Man, I'm great. Best in Blue, the Best in Blue, the Memphis Police Department, the city of Memphis. This is your brainchild. Tell us a little bit about your thinking behind this program and how the message that you want to get out to the public. And it's unfiltered. It's real, it's plain, and we're going to tell the truth.
That's right. So that's a great kind of opening because my thing about Best in Blue is I meet people every day. And often, people walk up and say, hey, I know you. Yeah. And I always introduce myself as Mike Rallings. Yeah. I rarely say director. They may say, well, what do I know you from? And I'll say, well, I'm a police director. But I tell them, I said, look, I want y'all to be very careful because, you see me they say they see me on TV all the time. And most people think they know how I feel about important issues. Yeah. But I caution them and say that you may see me a lot on TV, but you hear me in 30-second sound bites that are filtered, often by the media. They ask the question, I respond. They get to put a 30-minute conversation into a 30-second sound bite, and often it's not what's most advantageous to the role of the Memphis Police Department. It's whatever's going to, get some sensational headlines or get some attention. So I sit there every day and watch people talk about what Rallings thinks and what Rallings did, and I just start to chuckle and say, that's not at all what I said, how I thought about a particular issue. So I thought it was incredibly important for us, MPD, to have a voice, to put out the facts. And also, I noticed early on that it is my responsibility to also educate the public on what the law, our policy and procedures, and give them some back kind of side view of what actually is happening versus what they may have learned on Facebook. If any lesson that should have came out of yesterday's fiasco with MLGNW is to be very cautious of what is posted on social media. When you say that, and I hate to bring this into it, but the President Trump, he talks about fake news and how that's been prevalent in our election in 2016. But basically, that's what that was yesterday. Yes. It was fake news. It's fake news. And so you get a lot of that fake news also about the Memphis Police Department, about, hey, look, you got cops that are doing this, and then most of the time, a lot of that has no founding to it. Well, you'll see breaking news in this particular situation happen, and this is what people on the scene are saying, but you rarely see the backside where the investigation has been conducted. These are our findings, or these are the facts as we know them. You rarely see that. Crime also, often that you'll see breaking news, so there was a robbery, and everybody's upset. And then, later on we'll make an arrest and you'll say, hey, so-and-so was arrested for this crime. And moving on to the next story. That's right. Okay? It is not that, hey, wow, they had nothing to go on. They investigated, they beat the streets, and they've arrested these individuals, and they've, made this particular community safer as a result. Rarely will you see the backside of the story. You're listening to Best in Blue right here on the Kazukian Network. Director, and that's one thing. As an alternative media source right here with Kazukian Network, we have the ability to get out there. We want to get the word out there, but we also have listeners that believe and they want to email us. They email us, they text us, they talk. They said, look, we just want the facts as they are. We want the truth. So this show, Best in Blue, is going to be one of those shows that you come in and you can say, folks, look, this is it. That's right. So, you heard that, but this is it. That's right. They said I was this, but no, this is me. Yeah, but not just what's out in the public. I mean, because there's a whole laundry list of things to talk about. Often people talk about the police department and the fact that you'll see, very positive stories. Every single day, my officers are responding to calls.
Yeah.
And they're armed party calls, shots fired, robbery in progress, domestic violence, someone in a mental crisis, and the officers are disarming them. They're taking someone, a consumer, to get help at Lakeside or MMH&I.
Yeah.
There's no juicy story. There are no shots fired. Suspects are taken into custody for heinous crimes. There's no shots fired, nobody beat, and it's no story to it.
So do you think the national media or the local media has it, so to speak, in for law enforcement? I don't want to say in for them, but they don't want to tell the full story. Or you think we're at a place in our society right now where the police are just bad? If they're not bad locally, they're bad everywhere else, and then you get painted as being bad with the national.
I want you to think about something, okay? If you cut on your TV, I don't care what cable subscriber you have, Dish, satellite, Comcast, there are 5 million cop shows.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right.
So people are, just captured by watching cop shows, the CSIs and
that's right.
and the LAPD shows, and we had several First 48. People
that's
still
right.
think that First 48 is being filmed. Had been filmed since 2008.
Right here in Memphis,
okay?
I think so.
2008. So but when you talk about the media, and I appreciate the media just being honest and saying that, hey, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
So if they open up with, robbery or police incident or something that, people want to look, if you look at national news, they'll loop something over and over
That's
and
correct.
over and over again. You think it's still going on. That happened a week ago. It's not fresh, but I can keep you glued to the TV.
Yeah.
There's a 24-hour news cycle, and for that cycle to be maintained, I got to give you something.
Yeah, got to give you some
and
meat.
feel-good stories don't always capture the public's attention. I mean, good news doesn't normally spread as quick as bad news, and we know that. But that's the what I think is so important about Best in Blue, because Best in Blue was our ad campaign that we launched last year to attract men and women to law enforcement during a very difficult time in the nation. We know that that if you think about it, since 2014, 14, 15, 16, 17, 4 summers of unrest, and most of it is surrounding the actions of law enforcement and someone in the community. 4 summers of unrest. We've never seen that in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think that we should all be concerned about what is going on in the nation, what's going on in our communities, especially our communities of color, and what is a path forward. We spend a lot of time, pointing fingers, shouting at each other, and after all that, I say, okay, what are our goals? What is the path forward? How do we get out of this? But I want to tell the story of what Memphis police officers, who they really are and what they really do. We never can ignore the handful of incidents that are going to occur, that you have to deal with and respond to, that is not the best representation of a Memphis police officer, but it's something that happens in every profession. And I tell people, let's look at the facts. Often officers disciplined, officers are terminated, or often officers are found that they did they worked within the guidelines of policy.
Well, and I want to get right quick to this piece here. You said those 4 summers. Even in Memphis, though, I think I don't know if it's a testament to the Best in Blue the program you already started, community policing, but we've not seen a lot of the things that have occurred in some of our other areas of our country. We've had our crime spikes. There's no doubt about it. But in terms of some of the most heinous types of crimes, I hadn't seen a lot of that. I mean, is that a testament to? Well, I'm not going to say we have not had any, but like the incident down in Jackson, Mississippi, with the young man, the kid still in a car, and you shoot this kid in the back of the head.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because most of the time before an Amber Alert is even issued, because the guidelines are, if you get a situation where a child is abducted, the child is endangered, and we have suspect information, that's what we need for an Amber Alert. That 2 hour is the time limit. Say, get this out within 2 hours. Often before we even have issued the Amber Alert, we've captured the suspect or recovered the child. So we've had a number of successful, and I call them recoveries. And I always tell my officers that until you send me the picture of that baby with a Memphis police officer holding that baby, the search will continue until I know that that child is safe and that child is in our hands, so we can deliver that child back to the mother or back to the father. But you know, incident after incident, the officers are doing great work, and often the story goes untold. But what does get told is when an officer does something that is not the best representation of a police officer. So people think that that's the norm. But as I say that, each year our officers respond to almost 1 million calls where they are sent to a call. In 2016, over 2 million calls came into our 911 call center. And often that results in very few incidents where deadly force is used or some type of force is used to make an arrest.
You are listening to Best in Blue right here on the Kazukian Network.
I'll play the blues for you.
Blues in the Basement with Stephanie and T. Shaw.
Some great festivals going on around the tri-state area.
Got your dancing shoes?
Man, as long as I'm with you, baby, I'm always be on my toes.
Drop that zero.
Bring your blues, boo.
I got them.
We'll see you.
Thank you.
Blues in the Basement.
Thrill is gone.
Blues in the Basement, part of the Kazukian Network.
The thrill is gone away.
Best in Blue.
Hey, this is DC of that funky politics fame. Guess what? Got a new show. It's called Best in Blue. Best in Blue is a show that highlights the wonderful work of what the Memphis Police Department does, and it's a brainchild of the director Mike Rallings, who's sitting in with us right now. Director, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, it is great to have you here. It's warm in Memphis right now.
It's warm, but it's good to be here. Beautiful day.
Yeah, beautiful day. Beautiful day to be alive, my good brother. Beautiful day to be alive. You know, Monday will be a 1 year. We go back a year from Monday. There were some things that happened in the city of Memphis that put us on high alert. Not only the citizenry, but I think in terms of your leadership and how we handle that situation. That's the protesters who were on the bridge, I-40.
Yes.
Walk us back there. Walk us back from. Let's get there. I tell people all the time, you know, before you put Christ on the cross, you got to get him there to the cross. So there are some things in Memphis that have been going on, and we don't want to keep it a secret. I think people know there's some entrenched poverty. There's some joblessness. I mean, there's some hopelessness that's going on in our city, and we see it in our fluctuating crime rate. But some folks got fed up, and I guess they said, "Hey, look, I want to be heard," and they got to the bridge. Director, talk to us. Where are we at in the city?
Well, you know, I think that the bridge highlights the frustration that many have, and I've met with countless number of individuals and groups that wanted to be heard, and you know, their concerns at least placed on the table so that we can address them. A lot of the issues are not necessarily in the police director's lane.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are brought to me that, you know, aren't under my control. I don't control what happens in another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I don't control, you know, what happens in the school system or, you know, when people talk about jobs, I say, well, if you want to be a police officer, police service technician, dispatcher, or one of our great other civilian employees, then that's probably something that I can help you with. But those are the only jobs that we have. If you're gonna, you know, try to be employed through the summer youth program, then there are opportunities there. Internship, they're there. But a lot of those things that we're asking the police department to address and deal with are not necessarily in our lane. But you guess what? We do them.
Yeah.
So recently, one of my officers, you know, hosted a kind of help to get your driver's license back seminar.
I saw that.
You know, and this is something that he wanted to do. Officer Thurman Richardson, one of his brainchilds was, you know what, Director, I want to give back.
Yeah.
I want to help, make a difference in our community in other venues.
But the average citizen that took the bridge is what I like to call it. They don't feel like the Officer Thurman Richardson's. See, I grew up on Officer Friendly. In the book, he was a white guy. I have no problem with that. But now, I don't think those folks see an Officer Friendly. And I don't know if that depth perception is getting through to them that we are here to protect and serve, and maybe they're seeing something else. Are they looking at the national scope and then bringing it to a local scope?
I think it's a combination. I think the evolution of social media has changed how we see the world. As I stated earlier, yesterday's MLGNW incident is a classic example how often the wrong message or something that's not based in facts can spread within minutes and impact thousands of people, and that people believe it. So I think that when we talk about, you go back to Officer Friendly, I don't remember ever seeing a police officer much when I was a child. One incident when I was, shooting firecrackers outside of a little play gun, and somebody thought I was shooting at passing cars.
Yeah.
The other was, spending time in my grandmother's house in North Memphis and seeing the police respond to fights or violent incidents, and that was not there. So I think there's an over reliance of things. If we fix the police, the rest of the world's going to be great. But I think that's not built on anything that's solid and found. So I caution everyone in that, and I say that we are constantly doing community outreach. We've never stopped doing community policing. And if you think about the vast number of encounters with citizens are positive, but the negative encounters are the ones that get the press.
You are listening to Best in Blue right here on the Kazukia Network. I want to get to this bridge. I want to go to the bridge and the lasting effect, number one, that it has had on the conversation. They wanted to be heard, and I'm assuming there were some meetings, I understand, between yourself and the mayor and some other citizen leaders. But since then, the bridge to the aftermath and marry both of them together.
Let's go back to the bridge. Okay. And I often tell people that was a very dangerous situation. The bridge is not made for pedestrian traffic. And so we had a number of individuals that thought that was a good idea to go up on the bridge. And I often say that is the most dangerous situation I've been involved in, because the potential for catastrophe was so great. If somebody's pushed, fall accidentally, one of the motorists get impatient, suddenly gun their gas and accelerate and run into people. I'm sure the individuals that were armed besides law enforcement, so someone could have easily lost their life that day. My question to the individuals on the bridge, and we're trying to have a conversation up there, and I said, look, this is not the place to have a conversation. Yeah. We have to get off this bridge. You shut the bridge down, what's next? Yeah. What's the next logical step? And a lot of people were critical of what happened to Greater Money. And I said, well, that's interesting, because we worked that out walking off the bridge. That was a continuation of the conversation that started on the bridge that we couldn't keep. We had to get off the bridge. So the agreement to go to Greater Money the next day was what the protesters and I worked out. They wanted the mayor there. They wanted to be heard. And I think that many may have had an unrealistic expectation of what was going to happen after 1-2 hour meeting. It is no way you can resolve the very complicated, deep-rooted issues in a 2-hour meeting.
So now we are now today. We're today, and we're getting ready to look at another year of since that time. Are we looking at another bridge incident, do you think? Or
I certainly hope not, because it is my job to make sure that we protect the safety of all of our citizens, not just individuals that want to protest. And we've supported so many protests, and we support everyone's right to freedom of expression. But we say that you have to do it legally. Yeah. You have to do it safely. And you don't have a right to infringe on others' rights or break the law in doing so. If you want to have true conversation, you have it just like we're having.
Yeah.
We're not yelling at each other.
That's right.
We're not mad. We bring up issues and discuss them, but also we have to map out solutions. So I hope that's the path forward. And like I tell people, we don't broadcast everything we do. I have so many meetings this year alone, 150 speaking engagements.
Wow.
150. It's halfway through the year.
Wow.
150. So people say, well, we can't talk to you. I say, that's not true. You know, people walk up to me on the street. They call my office and set up a meeting. I invite them into my office so we can have conversations. And this is with kids, activists, clergy. It doesn't matter what race you are. I try to spend time in the Latino community, the African American community, the white community, because Memphis is made up of a lot of diverse people with different opinions.
That's right.
We have to learn to respect each other's different opinions and try to resolve complicated issues.
Have those concerns by the activists, by and large, have they been addressed?
Well, I'll tell you what. So from the conversation at Greater Money, 90 questions or comments were collected by the staff at Greater Money and presented to the mayor. The mayor responded to all 90 of those questions and concerns and posted them. Also spent time doing, several community meetings and listening sessions, but every time I turn around, somebody is accusing the mayor of not responding, not ignoring, not meeting, but that's just not true. So when you think about, trying to increase MWB participation, it's up substantially. We just finished My Brother's Keeper, where we, you think about 280 individuals walked away with jobs from one event with another follow-up for 215 follow-up interviews. So when you talk about trying to do more with youth, the mayor's number one priority is addressing crime, rebuilding the police force. We have to have proper staffing to do so. And I get to meet with the mayor behind the scenes. Yeah. And I know that he's trying hard to make things better. But the community has to do a much better job.
So is this a part of that relationship rebuilding, so to speak? And so is this a part of the way forward? Is this a part of the way forward for not only this administration, but for the city? How we can marry each other again?
Without a doubt. But also, I caution everyone and say that, because I get to meet thousands of people, and everybody doesn't have the same opinion.
Yeah.
So there's some that talk about the system being totally broke. But I meet a lot of positive people that are doing positive things, that are not waiting on the police, that are not waiting on government, that are out there in the trenches mentoring, tutoring, feeding, clothing kids, helping to be a positive influence in their lives. Because when I go talk to young men in the jail, and I'm talking at juvenile court and at 201 Poplar, you know what they tell me? They don't talk about, Director, we didn't have officer friendly. No. They said, Director, I didn't have a positive male role model in my life. Or they say that I came from a good family. I wanted to rob. I wanted to steal. I wanted to do these things. And I made mistakes. And I'm paying for those mistakes.
You're listening to Best in Blue right here on the Kazukian Network.
Time is truly wasted. There's no guarantee. Smile isn't a making. We gotta fight the powers that be.
iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Kazukian Network.
I'll play the blues for you.
Blues in the Basement with Stephanie and T. Shaw.
Some great festivals going on around the tri-state area.
Got your dancing shoes?
Man, as long as I'm with you, baby, I'm always be on my toes.
Drop that zero.
Bring your blues, boo.
I got them.
We'll see you.
Thank you.
Blues in the Basement.
The thrill is gone.
Blues in the Basement, part of the Kazukian Network.
The thrill is gone away.
Best in Blue.
Hey yo, I don't even know you and I hate you. See, all I know is that my girlfriend used to date you. How would you feel if she held you down and raped you? Tried and tried, but she never could escape you. She was in love, and I'd ask her how. I mean, why? What kind of love from a would black your eye? What kind of love from a every night make you cry? What kind of love from a make you wish he would die? I mean, he bought you things and
Hey, this is DC of that Funky Politics fame. Guess what? Got Best in Blue, y'all. Best in Blue right here on the Kazuki Network with Director Mike Rallings. Director, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Man, doing great. Doing wonderful. Hey, it's a little warm outside, but we here. We still here, Lord. We're still here. Look, Director, you and I talked offline a little bit ago about a study that the University of Memphis did regarding some crime trends in the city of Memphis, and we talked a little bit. Let's get into that and kind of dissect for our listeners, especially in the domestic violence area.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, great question. I asked the University of Memphis to come in and study our 2016 homicides. A lot of people have anecdotal information and why something happens, and I said, well, I'd rather have a study conducted by professionals, social scientists to see what the true, feeders or predictors are. So the University of Memphis looked at our 2016 homicides, and they really got excited. They actually, a partnership between just about 4 professors within the criminal justice program of U of M looked at homicides. And so here's what they found that I found was rather interesting, and I think that we need to spend a lot of time talking about it. One is, and they said that, Director, when we looked at all the causative factors or predictors, that there were 3 that stood out. One was either the suspect or the victim being transient, meaning that they're moving from place to place. And when you move from place to place, you don't establish relationships. Yeah. We have rival gang members moving into communities where that particular gang is not out or is not the most prominent gang in that area. Sure. A lot of kids are going from school to school. They don't know where they're going to live from month to month, and it just adds a whole nother layer of chaos.
So, instability, basically.
Instability, yeah. And I say chaos because that you're a little level above instability. You're talking about a chaotic situation where you don't know what's going to happen from month to month, from week to week, where you're going to live. I mean that is chaos. Very traumatic. The other issue is high school dropout. When you start looking at suspects and victims of homicide, you can easily see it, that they graduate from high school, that they obtain a GED. So often we talk about all these other things and that we don't even focus on education. So, and I think about the 40,000 chronically absent or tardy kids within the Shelby County school system almost every year. And I say that if those kids are in school, how are they learning? And when they're not in school, what are they doing? The third was exposure to domestic violence. So what the study showed, and contrary to popular belief, because there's so much attention has been focused on police. Well, Director, if y'all do more community policing. Well, Director, if we bring back officer friendly. Well, Director, if we do this. And I said, well, the study says that the suspects, victims, are learning to kill in the home, because they're exposed to violence at an early age. So you're talking about sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and many are suffering from undiagnosed mental illness. Yeah. Some mothers are pushing their children to be diagnosed with mental illness and putting them on medication. Okay. I mean, so you're talking about a very complex issue of living in poverty, exposure to domestic violence, poor education, being transient, putting people into these very violent relationships that often end in some type of serious injury or homicide.
This is the Best in Blue right here on the Kazuki Network. Well, Director, the superintendent, Dorsey Hobson, he says there's 40,000 young people in our district whose parents make about $10,000 or less. So if we got poverty, we've got this, we've got... How do we win? How do we win at this game? How do we get to the point where the crime rate is depressed and folks are able to say, look, I see a change in the city. I see a change where I can walk to the store. Mm-hmm. Or I don't mind my kid going to school just over there. I mean, how do we get to that sea change?
Well, first we make sure we focus on what's important. So I meet young men and young women every day, not every day, but at least once a week, that really can't read and write.
Oh, wow.
They may have a high school diploma, they may have a GED, but their level of literacy is extremely poor, which locks them into a particular life.
Yeah.
Because if you're illiterate, if you're not reading on a particular grade level, then the job opportunity for you is very limited. So we often talk about we need more jobs. Well, from what I'm hearing, there are like 15,000 jobs in Shelby County
that are open right now.
That are open. Yeah. They can't be filled because many of our young people are not job ready. When is being underutilized that will help, do, job readiness training, job placement. Obviously we have to deal with individuals with felony records. Yeah. I mean, the mayor's raised $60,000 to help with expungements. So there's a lot of opportunity. Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Reconnect.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about what's important. And what's important, what I tell kids is that I do 4 things every single day as a police director. I read, I write, I do math, and I talk to people. That's it. And guess what? Most of it I learned in elementary, in junior high, they call it middle school now, and in high school. So when I graduated out of high school, I should have had those things mastered.
Yeah.
Well, I can take a calculator out, and our parents say, make sure you can count your money.
That's right.
Make sure you know how to pay your bills, how to do those basic things. But I think about that for our young people to be successful, we need to make sure we teach them what success looks like. We weren't trying to hang around. We're trying to, either go get a job, go to school, or join the military. I meet young kids that are bringing their young brothers up to pose with pistols, fake money, drugs. And if they aspire to be, a gangbanger or to be a robber or whatever, I ask them, okay, how successful do you think you're really going to be? How far is that going to take you? If they talk to the young man that's locked up in jail, they'll tell them, is you going to have been dead or you going to end up in jail? So we need to make sure that we focus on education, that when you come out of high school, you have more than just a piece of paper, that you can actually read, write, do math, and talk to people.
Let me ask you this. And you were talking about those 3 points, those 3 predictors, and domestic violence. A lot of folks think that the police department can do something directly to curb or to negate domestic violence in the home. I mean, what is there? What is there out there other than having services out there? But then that's after the fact, all right?
Well. So here's what we can do, and we can do more to try to educate the public.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think that we can see through walls and know what's going on in the home, but we know that a lot of domestic violence issues are not reported. But guess what? Almost every time we investigate a crime, some witness, some family member, some friend, some neighbor says, well, I knew things weren't right over there, and I knew I heard stuff, and I should have called the police. And I say,
Isn't
know
that
what?
Frustrating?
You are absolutely correct. If you would have taken some type of action as a family member, then that person probably be alive today. So when I talk about the community doing a better job, I'm not talking about, these moving mountains. I'm talking about little bitty things that when you see your son, your brother, your father going down the wrong road, that you try to intervene. And I tell the little kids, say, director, what can I do? I'm just a young boy, I'm a young girl. I say, you go to your father and say, you know what? I love you. I want you to be here for my graduation.
Yeah.
Can you promise me you'll stop doing what you're doing? Because I don't think you're going to live to see me graduate. You've already been stabbed and shot and ran over. You're in and out of jail. I don't think you're going to be here.
Powerful. Best in Blue right here on the Kazukian Network.
Best in Blue, recorded live at LPI Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. Executive producer Larry Robinson. Best in Blue, part of the Kazukian Network.